After Nolan's first love hopped into the front seat next to him again, I didn't make a fuss. I just quietly moved to the back seat next to his buddy Felix. As the car bumped along, my knee brushed against Felix's firm thigh. I deliberately didn't pull away, and he didn't move either. When we stopped at a rest area, Nolan's first love asked him to go to the restroom with her. As the car door closed, Felix grabbed me by the back of the neck and kissed me. In that whirlwind moment, a thought slipped into my mind. Questioning men, understanding men becoming men, truly holds some undeniable truths. Once again, Nolan's first love, Carrie, slid into the front seat with him. I didn't argue. I just opened the back seat door. I paused for a moment in surprise. Never thought someone as busy as Felix would join this short road trip. I quickly composed myself and gave him a reserved nod. Felix, wearing glasses, looked a bit tired. He glanced at me, nodded back, and closed his eyes. Carrie, fastening her seatbelt, looked back and gave me a smug smile. Lily, I get carsick, so I'm sitting in the front, okay? Nolan turned to me too. Carrie gets carsick. Be the bigger person, and don't get upset over small things. I chuckled softly, all right. Nolan seemed a little surprised but didn't say anything more because Carrie had already shoved a bitten piece of bread into his mouth. Tastes bad. Help me finish it, big brother. Nolan didn't flinch and easily finished half the bread. Carrie eyed me through the rearview mirror, giggling, and stuck out her tongue. I ignored her, grabbed a bottle of soda, and tried to open it. The cap was tough. I couldn't get it off after a couple of attempts. Meanwhile, in the front seat, Carrie was handing her bottle to Nolan, whining, big brother, I really can't open it. Ever since I was little, you know I have no strength in my hands. Nolan, looking pleased, opened her bottle effortlessly. The two of them took turns drinking from it, acting like they didn't care at all. I felt a bit nauseous and was about to put my bottle down when a man's hand, dressed in a black casual suit sleeve and a peak of silver gray shirt, took it from me. The arm was elegantly slender, with well-manicured nails. In the light reflecting through the car window, each finger was like a jade pillar. I stood dazed as Felix opened the bottle and handed it back to me. Just then the music started playing in the car. I accepted the bottle, mumbling a thank you. Felix nodded slightly, closing his eyes again. He must have just come off a night shift at surgery. His eyes were a little bloodshot. I sipped the water slowly. The car smoothly entered the main road. Carrie had a birthday coming up. Nolan had organized this short trip just to celebrate it. There were about 7 or 8 of us, in 3 cars, heading to a hot springs resort about 100 kilometers away. Not long into the drive, Carrie practically clung to Nolan. With the music blaring, I couldn't hear what they were saying, but they seemed to be having a great time. We'd argued several times recently because of Nolan and Carrie's crossing the line behavior. He promised he'd be more careful next time, but he always forgot the moment he saw Carrie. I suddenly felt it was all pretty pointless. I smirked to myself and turned to look out the window. The mountain road was winding, with occasional fallen rocks. As the car bumped along, I couldn't help but lean a little, my bare knee under my dress brushing firmly against Felix's thigh. Instinctively, I was about to move away, but then noticed a telltale red mark on Carrie's neck. Even an idiot could recognize a hickey, and who'd put it there was obvious. In that instant I decided and stopped moving. Felix opened his eyes. He looked at me, but I kept my gaze forward, feigning calmness, avoiding eye contact. Yet, instead of moving away, I pressed my knee a little tighter against his leg. Through his thin slacks, I could feel his muscular thigh, warm and firm, waves of heat washing over me, tingling my nerves. I felt parched, swallowing hard to wet my throat, then reached for my water bottle. The cold water sliding down soothed some of my restlessness and brought clarity to my mind. Felix didn't move his leg either. Just like that, leaving me pressed up against him. My heart skipped a beat, then started racing, almost spiraling out of control. But then the car made a sharp swerve. Carrie screamed from the front seat, "You scared me, big brother." She patted her chest, her voice softening to praise. "Wow, big brother, your reflexes are amazing. If you hadn't swerved, the rock would have hit us." Nolan laughed. "See, big brother can handle anything, right?" Carrie suddenly leaned over and kissed him. "Way to go, big brother. Here's a kiss for you. Cut it out." Nolan suddenly remembered his girlfriend was still in the back and pretended to be angry, giving Carrie a playful glare. "You're an adult now, act your age. Your sister is still here." Carrie widened her eyes, putting on an innocent, clueless look. "Lily, I grew up with him. I see him as my own brother. You're not upset, right?" I pulled a blanket over myself, giving a cold smile. "Do you snuggle with your real brother like this at home too?" Carrie immediately looked wounded. "See, Nolan? I told you Lily doesn't like me. Maybe I shouldn't have come, so I wouldn't upset her." Nolan frowned. "All right, Lily. You're 2 years older than Carrie. Try to be more mature. She's just like a little kid, used to being carefree. Why did you have to speak so harshly?" At that moment, I didn't even have the energy to argue or fight. "You want me to be magnanimous? Sure, no problem. But in the future, I hope you can be a little more generous yourself." Under the cover of the blanket, my leg and Felix's leg were getting steadily closer. With each mild bump, my knee and calf brushed against him again. Felix's warm, slender hand suddenly grasped my thigh, his palm pressed against my slightly cool skin. Heat began to invade, constant and overwhelming. In that instant, my senses felt amplified 1,000 times. I could even feel the thin calluses on his fingers from handling surgical tools. I could feel the subtle touch of his fingers lightly grazing my skin. I couldn't help but glance back at him. Though it was just a quick look, it caught him sitting up straight, with his shirt collar neatly buttoned. That sexy Adam's apple of his bobbed fiercely. And that profile, its contours were sharp to perfection. It made my heart skip a beat. Felix is kind of an oddball in Nolan's circle. If it weren't for some roundabout family connection to Nolan, someone as emotionally distant and ridiculously neat as him wouldn't hang out in this crowd. After being with Nolan, naturally, I got to know him. But every time we met, it was just a nod and a hello. He likes quiet and doesn't talk much. His personal life is like a blank slate. After several group dinners, while others were having fun playing cards or sports, Felix often left early. Occasionally when he stayed, he'd sit alone on the sofa in a corner, eyes closed, resting. He never got involved in any of the excitement. Nolan had joked a few times, "My cousin here, he's like purity itself. Even at 27, I bet he's never touched a woman. It's better lately. If we invite him 10 times he'll show up 3 or 4. A few years back, you wouldn't see his face even once. Actually, I heard his name during college and saw him a few times from a distance. But to me, Felix was like a dream that many girls in the throes of young love might fantasize about. Like the high-hanging moon you can't reach. Felix and I didn't have much contact. Just twice, when I wasn't feeling well and went to the hospital. It happened to be under his care. I was pretty embarrassed at the time, but Felix was very professional. Because of that, I quickly calmed down. Secretly, I even chided myself. Felix, as a surgeon, has seen it all. No matter how young, pretty, or well-shaped I am, to him, it's just a hunk of flesh. Still, when he was examining me, I closed my eyes tight, my face burning red. When leaving, I wasn't sure if I'd seen wrong, or if the heater was just cranked too high. Felix's ears seemed a bit flushed too. "Brother, could you stop at the next service area? I need the restroom." Carrie's voice pulled me back from my thoughts. I bit my lip, trying to move my leg, but Felix's fingers held on even tighter. I lowered my long lashes and stayed still. The car stopped, and Carrie immediately insisted Nolan accompany her to the restroom. Nolan hesitated, looking back at me. Felix suddenly spoke softly, "She's asleep." Nolan seemed relieved. "Okay, I'll take Carrie to the restroom. Be back soon." Felix murmured a response. The car door opened and closed. Their voices faded away, leaving a comfortable silence. "Lily," Felix suddenly lifted the blanket from my legs. "You're sweating. Aren't you hot?" I lowered my head even more, unable to meet his gaze. I grabbed a water bottle to hide my embarrassment by taking a sip, but Felix took it from me. "Go easy on the ice water. Did you forget the doctor's advice?" Summoning some courage out of nowhere, I raised my head to meet his gaze. "Maybe the doctor's not that skilled, huh?" "How so?" Felix slightly furrowed his brow. "I took the meds and cut things out like you said, but it still hurts." His brows knitted tighter. "Still hurts?" "Yeah, it still hurts a bit now." I pursed my lips, chin lifted a little. "Do I need another checkup, doc?" Not far outside the car window, Carrie was clinging to Nolan's arm so tight there wasn't even a hint of space between them. Nolan occasionally pinched her cheek or ruffled her hair. They looked like a perfectly intimate couple. I felt a growing sense of frustration and anger that had been building inside me, looking for an escape. Somehow, before I realized it, I grabbed Felix's hand. Or should Dr. Felix do his duty now and check me? Just as Felix's hand almost brushed my chest, he was quicker than me. His long, strong fingers latched onto the back of my neck with just a hint of force, pulling me close to him. "Lily," he said, looking down at me while I had to tilt my head to meet his eyes. "Don't tease me here." Was I teasing? I dared to stare right back at him, no backing down. Doesn't the doctor have any ethics? Just watching a patient suffer without lifting a finger? Before I could finish, Felix suddenly removed his glasses and kissed me. That unique taste of his, slightly bitter, seemingly soaked into every inch of his skin, enveloped me completely. My eyes flew open wide. Instinctively, I wanted to push him away, but his grip tightened. I let out a small cry, only to have him take advantage and kiss me deeper. With each passing moment, oxygen slipped away, leaving me lightheaded. My legs weakened, and soon my whole body felt as if it had lost its bones, unable to hold itself up. Felix held my chin, diving deeper into the kiss, making my roots tingle. At some point, my hands unknowingly grabbed his shirt, crumpling it up. Our heavy breathing mingled together, and tears were forced to the corners of my eyes. Suddenly Felix stopped. I tilted my head up, staring at him with a hazy look, as if asking for more, asking for a kiss. Felix smiled knowingly, and wiped the moisture off the corner of my mouth with his fingers. "Don't be so eager, Lily." "Huh?" I looked at him, dazed and partially out of it. Felix leaned in again, giving my slightly swollen lips a soft, fleeting kiss. His forehead rested gently against mine, his voice low and sexy. 30 more kilometers and I'll give you more." My ears buzzed. My body, already softened from the kiss, felt even hotter. I couldn't believe Felix would say something like that. My ears must have been burning red, my neck too. I raised my hand to push him away, but Felix turned and kissed my earlobe. "They're back." I jumped at his words and looked out the window. Nolan and Carrie were walking back, laughing and chatting. I quickly pushed Felix away and went back to my seat, pulling a blanket over myself, pretending to still be asleep. As soon as I closed my eyes, the strange feeling on my lips reminded me. I took out a small mirror to check. My lips were slightly swollen from the kiss, and my lipstick was smudged. It looked all kinds of suspicious. I glared at Felix, blaming him. "It's all your fault, my lips are swollen." He leaned back in his seat, calmly cleaning his glasses, then looked up at me and pointed somewhere. "And who's to blame for this?" I followed his gesture and widened my eyes. "You, how could you? How could you have such a strong reaction? Didn't Nolan say you were completely uninterested in women?" "Lily, I'm a normal man too." Felix put his glasses back on and adjusted them with his fingers. But just like that, the sultriness from our earlier deep kiss seemed to be sealed away. He went back to being the cold, reserved Felix. Still, this contrast weirdly thrilled me, because who doesn't want to bring a high and mighty man down to earth? Who doesn't want to see a cold, abstinent guy lose it, get emotional, and go crazy for them? Understanding men, questioning men, becoming the man, pretty spot on. When Nolan and Carrie were almost at the car, Felix handed me a small packet of candy out of nowhere. "Open it, but don't eat it just for show." "Why can't I eat it? It's my favorite." "Junk food, not good for you." "Occupational hazard," I muttered back, not really agreeing, and tore open the package to eat. But Felix snatched it and tossed it into the car's trash bag. The car door opened, and Carrie immediately glanced at me. "Lily, what's up with your lips?" With a straight face, I pointed at the trash bag. "Ate some of those candies, got swollen from the spice." Carrie covered her mouth, giggling to Nolan. "Look, if we didn't know better, we'd think Lily went smooching with someone and got those lips all puffed up." Nolan looked at me with a bit of doubt, but when he saw Felix's indifferent face, his expression softened. "Don't talk nonsense. Lily's been in the car the whole time. Who could she kiss?" "That may not be the case. Who knows what Lily gets up to when we step away?" Just as Carrie finished, Felix shot her a look, his voice cold. She was asleep in the car. She woke up 5 minutes ago. I can vouch for that. Carrie went quiet, taken aback. Felix. Felix interrupted sharply. Your family and mine aren't close, and neither are we. Carrie flushed with embarrassment, her eyes looking like she might cry as she appealed to Nolan. Nolan glanced at Felix's stern face and stayed silent. Carrie was upset but didn't have much choice. Her family relied on Nolan's family. Nolan himself was all deferential around Felix. So, she had to swallow her pride. But she wasn't happy, shooting me a glare through the rearview mirror. Yeah, just great. She's definitely holding a grudge against me now. The rest of the 30 kilometers, Carrie stayed quiet. Only once we reached the hot springs resort, she latched onto Nolan, insisting to share a suite. Brother, I've never slept alone at night. It scares me. Besides, they're separate bedrooms. I'm sure Lily won't mind, right? Carrie clung to Nolan's arm, shaking it. Nolan looked at me helplessly. I just offered a casual smile. Sure, I can switch rooms with her. I like the garden suite anyway. Nolan seemed a bit guilty, trying to soothe me. Lily, it's Carrie's birthday this time. Let's just go along with it. Next time, I'll take you on a solo vacation to make up for it, okay? I nodded generously. Yeah, sounds good. Let me help get your things to your room. Nolan didn't wait for me to respond before he was moving my stuff into the room. When he left, he felt a lot more at ease. There was a party later. I went back to my room, took a shower, and put on a new dress, taking my time doing a subtly alluring makeup look. I got there a bit late. Everyone was already around. In the bustling room, I immediately spotted Felix sitting alone by the window. He'd changed into a white shirt and still wore his glasses, looking as composed and cool as ever. When I entered, he gave me a brief look, but when I looked away, I caught him loosening the top button of his shirt with one hand, fingers brushing his Adam's apple. I bit my lip slightly, my mind wandering with the thought of what it would be like to bite him right there. What could happen when he loses it? Wow, Lily, why are you all dolled up tonight? Carrie ran over and shook my arm. She pouted. But why are you outshining me, the birthday girl? Bro, Lily's picking on me again. Get her. I looked at Carrie. She's also dressed up nicely tonight. Honestly, she looks like a little princess. But as they say, sometimes cuteness gets overshadowed by sexiness. I usually stick to a casual style, but tonight on a whim, I went for a sultry look. A strappy wine red dress and matching lace-up heels. The dress complements my skin tone perfectly, and the straps on my calves make my legs look long and slender. Nolan looked at me, clearly impressed. The crowd started to buzz. It's rare to see Lily like this. Nolan, you're a lucky guy. Check it out. Nolan's eyes are practically glued to Lily. Nolan seemed a bit smug. He walked over and cleared his throat, sounding serious. Lily, it's Carrie's birthday today. You can dress up however you want when we date. You're just making Carrie upset. I stared at Nolan. I could clearly feel that any lingering feelings I had for him were slipping away. But surprisingly, I wasn't too upset or reluctant. Lily, did you hear me? Nolan frowned. His gaze stayed on me, not moving away. So what do you want? Go change your clothes. Nolan lightly held my arm, pulling me aside to a quiet corner, lowering his voice. Lily, you're 2 years older than Carrie. Give her a break. I pushed away his hand and laughed. What if I don't want to? Nolan was taken aback but then chuckled. How can you say you don't want to? But I just don't want to. If you don't want to, then let's break up. His handsome but arrogant face turned angry and disdainful. He seemed sure I'd be scared of breaking up, that I wouldn't dare. Fine, let's break up. I removed his hand, as you wish. Nolan suddenly laughed, coldly and mockingly. Alright, think you're all that? Get lost. I didn't say a word, just turned around and walked out the door. I didn't go back to the room. Grabbing a bottle of red wine, I headed to the garden. Sipping wine, enjoying the evening breeze. By the second glass, I sent a message to Felix on Instagram. Felix. He replied quickly, like he was waiting for my message. What's up? My breast still hurts. Felix didn't reply. A few minutes later he called. I leaned on the chair, the cool mountain breeze blowing, and nearby, the crepe myrtle flowers were still in bloom. I felt a bit tipsy, my senses blurring, but Felix's voice was clear as ever. Lily, where are you right now? Only call me Lily after a kiss? Felix, the doctor sure is two-faced. There was a brief pause. He seemed to chuckle. Then with a soft tone he called my name. Lily where? In the garden. Felix, are you coming over? Felix took me to his place. He didn't live in the same building as us. He had a small house hidden in a bamboo grove. On the way, I asked curiously, "Aren't you afraid of being seen?" Felix held my hand, guiding me over the stone path. I looked down at our shadows, stretched long by the moonlight. This is Felix's family property. No need to worry or fear. Who said I was worried or scared? Felix glanced at me. I stopped walking, looking at him directly. I broke up with Nolan. So what would I be afraid of? When did this happen? Half an hour ago, you were there. Felix didn't say anything. The moon was bright, stars few, and bamboo shadows cast all around. Patterns of light danced on his handsome face. Standing in the moonlight, he resembled a slender bamboo stalk. Lily. He held my hand tighter, pulling me into his arms. You better be done with him. Don't go back to him. Felix lived in a secluded house with a big yard. As soon as we stepped into the yard, he pinned me against the door. He held my face, kissing deeply, urgently. During a breathless pause, his face pressed against my neck, his breath hot. I hooked my arms around his neck, fingers running through his thick hair. Felix. Have you ever kissed another woman? He turned to kiss my lips again, breath erratic, voice low. No. So never slept with a woman either? Felix held my face, thumb brushing away a drop of moisture from my lip. Correct. He's tall. Even with heels, I only reached his chin. My hands, originally in his hair, slowly moved to the open collar of his shirt. As my fingers touched his Adam's apple, he reacted strongly. His Adam's apple moved intensely, his hands hot on my face. A mix of emotions broke through inside me, craving release. Desperate to let go, I closed my eyes, my lips brushing his alluring Adam's apple. His fingers threaded through my hair, tighten, pulling me closer, lips almost touching. His breathing was entirely off rhythm, yet he still controlled it, not letting a single gasp escape. Doctor, did you forget why you're here? His long fingers traced my face. Then he leaned down to gently kiss the corner of my eye. What's going on? I'm in pain. Won't you just check it for me? I lifted my hand and grabbed his left hand, pulling it down. His fingers landed right on my chest. The moonlight was like silver, and my bare skin was so white it looked like a light frost. I tilted my face up, and I could clearly see the deep, intense desire in his eyes. Then I pressed his hand down with mine, steadily increasing the pressure. Dr. Felix, can we begin now? Felix's palm was burning hot. The skin on my chest felt like it was being scorched by his heat. His Adam's apple was moving intensely. The desire in his eyes was churning, overwhelming. A force that seemed like it could consume me. We were so close together. I could clearly feel every unsettling change and reaction in his body. He was like a volcano, scorching me until I felt lightheaded and out of control. But maybe I underestimated Felix's self-control. He even managed, at that moment, to forcefully pull his hand away from me. I stared at him, feeling a bit stunned, puzzled, and a little hurt. Not here. Felix wrapped his arms around me and kissed me again. Let's shower first. Otherwise, it wouldn't be clean, and that wouldn't be good for you. My chest trembled lightly. Even the cool mountain breeze seemed to soften. In that moment, no one could resist the allure. When we walked in and were changing shoes, I hadn't bent down yet when Felix knelt with a new pair of slippers. Surgeons are known for their nimble hands. He awkwardly pulled the intricate ribbons on my leg twice before succeeding. He carefully placed my ankle into the soft slippers. When I looked down, I saw the white shirt snugly wrapping his broad back. Below that, the shirt tucked neatly into his slacks, highlighting his slim waist. Maybe it was the alcohol, but I felt a little hot and thirsty. When he stood up, I suddenly went up on my toes, looping my arms around his neck and kissed him. From the entrance, we kissed all the way to the bathroom. As the shower water poured down, his shirt hem was already tousled by me, and the strap of my dress had long since slipped. Felix pinned me against the wall, kissing me fiercely and heavily. The shower steam filled the room, devouring everything. He seemed as if he wanted to devour me too. Lily. But then suddenly Felix gripped my wrist, forcibly pulling me away. He brushed my wet hair away from my face. His fingers intertwined with mine, his breath hot and uneven, his voice husky. Back to the bedroom. It won't be comfortable for you here. Fully dressed, Dr. Felix seemed so lean. I never expected his body to look that good underneath. He even had a six-pack. I can't imagine where he found the time and energy to work out with his intense schedule. Still, it was a perk for me. I couldn't help but touch for a long time. Like it. Tangled on the bed, Felix still found time to ask me. Duh, who wouldn't like a man with abs? Of course I do. I gave them another firm touch. Well, now they're all yours. I didn't reply. I was floating in and out of consciousness with him. Back in school, Felix was the cool senior everyone admired. I didn't dare dream of having him. Those girlish crushes were just locked away in my heart. But now, this moon was in my grasp. Yet I still couldn't believe my luck. It's like that song says. Who could truly own Mount Fuji through love? Especially with Nolan. We had all those messy dealings between us. And he even had to call Felix his cousin. But soon, I couldn't even think about those things anymore. Felix kissed me on the lips again. Interlocked our fingers, pressing me into the bed. I wouldn't dare look at my face right then. It must have had desire all over it. The large bedroom was lit only by a corner floor lamp. The curtain was half drawn, moonlight spilling in, casting long shadows. I lay in that moonlit space, almost becoming one with it. Outside the window, the flowering trees had closed their blooms for the night. Amidst black and white, a few red petals shimmered. Inside, it was much the same scene. Though if you looked closely, you'd see the marks he left on my waist. The strength in a surgeon's hands is truly incredible. I thought back to Felix's hands gripping my waist earlier. Feeling my face heat up, my heart racing all over again. That was my first time with Felix. Honestly, it ended a bit hastily. He leaned over and kissed my slightly damp hair. Need some water? I murmured a soft leaning on the pillow, too tired to talk. Felix brought water, and I, still not wanting to move, lazily had him feed me. He cradled me in his arms, making me drink the whole glass. More. Felix set down the cup, chuckling quietly, sure, all yours. When he rolled over back on top of me, it dawned on me. This man, how was he still so clean and respectable before? The second time went on much longer. I could easily tell. Someone as smart as Felix learns fast. He quickly took charge of the rhythm, understood every one of my weak spots and sensitivities. Soon, he had me melting away under him. The tear marks at the corner of my eyes melted into my hair. He coaxed and made me call him brother several times. In the end, frost covered the gardens as rain fell on the river, day or night unknown. The next morning when I woke, daylight was streaming in. Felix wasn't in the room. Craving water, I got up to drink, only to realize my body felt sore as if run over. After a while, I got out of bed, finding a note under the glass on the nightstand. It was Felix's writing. Sorry, Lily. There was a serious accident. The hospital is short-staffed. I had to leave early. I'll get back to you when I'm free, sweetie. I stared at the paper, a bit dazed for a moment. The first thought that popped into my head was, maybe this is just what guys usually say. Felix just saw last night as a fling. But I couldn't help myself. I opened my phone to check. The top headline was about that chain reaction crash. The injured were sent to a hospital near where Felix works. He actually wasn't lying to me. But he said he'd get back to me. When he does reach out, what's he gonna say? What am I supposed to do? My mind felt all scrambled. Even I hadn't figured out what my next step should be. But I knew I didn't want to stay there anymore. I quickly got up, washed up, and planned to go pack up and leave. Just as I walked out to the lake, I ran into Nolan and Carrie's group. I didn't want to deal with them, so I turned to take another path. Carrie called out, "Hey Lily, why are you wearing a man's shirt?" On my way out, to cover the kiss marks on my neck and chest, I just grabbed a new men's shirt from the cabinet. It must have been for Felix for his little stays. Instinctively, I clutched the shirt. Nolan's face was already changing. "Lily, where'd you get that shirt from?" I tried to keep calm. My first thought was, it was my idea to hook up with Felix. No matter what, I can't drag him into this mess. I said I got chilly and borrowed it from a waiter. Nolan stepped closer. "You're still in last night's dress, Lily. You haven't been back to your room, huh?" He reached to pull my shirt open. I pushed him back and said, "If I remember right, we broke up last night. So, whatever I do isn't your concern." Carrie gasped in surprise. "Lily, you broke up with my brother?" I looked at Carrie expressionless. "Yep, we broke up. Must make you happy, right? What are you implying here?" She got all mad. "Why would I be happy? Like I'm the bad guy. Aren't you gonna step in, brother? Or people will start rumors and call me names." Nolan patted her hand, pulling her behind him. He looked at me with clear annoyance. "All this over what? How many times do I have to say, Carrie's like a sister to me? Nothing's going on." Carrie chimed in all catty. "Lily, don't think so dirty. Men and women can just be friends. Lily, if you keep making a fuss, you'll regret it. I'm not fighting with you. Just don't want to talk anymore. I made it clear last night, we're done." I wasn't in the mood for Nolan's nonsense. Still sore all over. Felix had some decency, didn't drag me into a third round. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be able to get out of bed. "Fine. Then where did you go last night if you weren't in your room?" I smirked. "Ran into a friend, had some drinks, chatted." "So what? Just drinks and a chat? How's that your business?" I flipped my hair. Nolan's eyes suddenly narrowed, pointing at my neck's marks. "What's that on your neck?" I glanced at him and touched it. "Probably a mosquito bite." "Lily, who do you think you're fooling? What else do you think it is then? Also, even if it is what you're thinking, so what? Men and women can just be friends too, even if they kiss." Looked at Carrie. "Don't you agree, Carrie?" She turned bright red, speechless, clinging to Nolan like she was about to cry. Nolan didn't care, just kept staring at my neck mark. "Lily, who'd you drink with last night? You bet the spill. Why don't you check for yourself if you want?" I smirked and said, "Can you move? I feel like getting back to rest." Maybe my calmness got under Nolan's arrogant skin. His face grew dark, as furious as can be. "Lily, don't regret this. And don't let me find out who you're messing around with." I just murmured, "Whoever regrets it is an idiot." I returned to my room, took a shower, changed into comfy casuals, and packed my stuff to leave the hot springs resort. On the way back, Dad called me several times. I didn't pick up. Soon my brother messaged me. "Did you have a fight with Nolan? Just apologize and stop this, alright? I'm trying to seal a business deal with his family. Don't screw it up for me." I felt utterly frustrated. All I did was date him. I didn't contract my soul away. We're done, not getting back together. "Lily, you think you're all that now? Let me tell you, if you can't keep a big fish like him, I'll have Mom and Dad kick you out. Believe it. I've been independent since college graduation. Even my parents made it clear. Everything at home is for my brothers. They even gave me one small, ordinary apartment while my brothers and their wives got the rest. So why care about the family's business or its future?" I chuckled and replied, "Couldn't agree more." After returning, I shut myself in for 3 whole days. No one with a family like mine could ever be truly unfazed. The blues kept me up at night. My head was pounding like crazy. Had to drag myself up for a drink. Maybe it was the alcohol, or maybe it was my mood, but the pain from breast swelling came creeping back. The meds didn't help. It just worsened until I had to go to the hospital for a checkup. I made an appointment with another specialist, just to avoid Felix. My whole life is such a mess right now. I can't even imagine facing him. I waited for a while in the hallway, and then a nurse came over and called me. When I followed her, I realized she was taking me to Felix's office. Instinctively, I wanted to turn and leave, but Felix caught me. He looked exhausted, probably working non-stop for the past 2 or 3 days. His eyes were red, and he seemed really tired. "Sit down for a moment. I'll wash my hands," he said. He took off his lab coat and washed his hands very carefully. I watched the water run over his long, strong fingers and drifted into my thoughts. I kept thinking about that night, and how those hands explored parts of me that had never been touched before. How they brought me such pleasure, almost euphoric. I felt like I was completely wasted, consumed by these thoughts. "Is it that spot that's hurting again?" Felix asked, after washing and disinfecting his hands before coming over. "Sorry, Lily, it's been so busy. I couldn't get in touch with you right away." I just stared at him. He seemed a bit thinner in just 3 days. His scruffy beard needed trimming, so I reached out and touched it. "Felix, you look so scruffy with that stubble. Not a good look." He held my hand, gently rubbing his chin against my palm with a soft laugh. I'll shave it. I pulled him back as he started to get up. I'm just teasing. It looks kind of handsome, actually. Very manly, like full of that male pheromone vibe. Should I keep it then? I wrinkled my nose. Nah, don't. It'll hurt when you kiss me. He chuckled more deeply. Want to try it out? We're in your office, I pointed out. That's fine. I've got half a day to rest, no one's coming by. I was about to call you anyway when I saw you're here. Felix got serious, holding my hand. Lily, I'm really sorry. I didn't know it was your first time. We were so close, right next to the window. I think there was a camphor tree outside, and just beyond was the garden. A faint fragrance wafted in on the breeze. The lighting played across his handsome, sharp features. I could see each of his eyelashes, the slight dark circles from sleepless nights, and even a little brown mole at the corner of his eye. He was the unreachable dream I had as a young girl, and now my eyes stung. So many thoughts were hard to put into words. Sometimes you just can't help feeling inferior in front of the person you admire most. But deep down, I couldn't bear to push him away. I've always known I'm selfish and vain. Just like how I don't want those greedy, shameless relatives sucking the life out of me, or anyone around me. I want to cut ties with them completely. And right now, I want the whole world to know Felix is mine. But I can't say it just yet. A man like Felix, so upright and honorable. I don't want to drag him into those messy affairs. While all this was running through my mind, I started smiling at him. Why, are you thinking of taking responsibility for me? Felix didn't laugh. He answered seriously, I am. Don't be so serious, Felix, you're scaring me. I slowly withdrew my hand from his. We're all adults here. We can handle our actions. It's not necessary. Lily. Doc, I'm in pain right now. Can we start the treatment? Felix studied me, staying silent for a few seconds before switching to his professional demeanor. He gave me a thorough examination and adjusted my medications. Go for a therapy session. The heat and massage will make you feel a lot better. I nodded and got up to leave, but Felix brought out a clean white coat. I'll take you there. During the heat and massage therapy, I closed my eyes because I was a little embarrassed. Can the nurse do this? Felix put on his gloves. Are you doubting my professionalism? I choked on my words and stayed quiet. Still, when his fingers touched me, my face flushed. Yet Felix's techniques were really top-notch, and I soon felt so comfortable. I was almost falling asleep. Near the end, Felix seemed to call my name, but I was too sleepy to respond. He might have said something, or maybe nothing at all, before he stepped out. I dozed off soundly, and didn't look for Felix when I woke. I just asked the nurse to pass a message and quietly left. I wore a mask and kept my head down as I walked to the hospital exit. Just as I got downstairs, someone grabbed my arm, and I was slapped, which left me dazed. When I came to, I saw my two brothers' cold and angry faces. Lily, you're coming with us to see Nolan. I'm not going. You don't have a choice. Mr. Nolan said as long as you apologize, he'll consider getting engaged with you. Our business needs this and Nolan's the key. I shook free with all my strength, almost gritting my teeth. I said I'm not going. My second brother, who has a temper, raised his hand to hit me again, but my older brother stopped him. He looked at me gently, his voice calm. Lily, the family is really going through tough times. If this deal falls through, it's over for us. You're part of the family. I've always treated you well. Help us out, please. Have you thought about how people will see me in the future? How they'll treat with me? You're young, gorgeous, well-educated. Nolan genuinely likes you. He wouldn't treat you badly. Lily, don't be naive. So many people would kill to marry Nolan. I told you, I'm not making up with Nolan. I stepped back, glared at them with a cold smile. If you love the idea of such a great marriage, you can offer up your own daughters. Lily, if you're turning your back on your family, then return everything Mom and Dad gave you and cut all ties. Fine, I'll give it back. My older brother frowned, seeing how unmoved I was. Lily, you're young and naive. It's easy to make mistakes. Once you're married, you'll understand how important your family is. Don't regret it later. I couldn't help but laugh. During my teenage years, I went through pain, confusion, struggles, even thought about taking my own life. I couldn't understand why my parents doted on my two brothers, but were so cold towards me. It left me deeply self-doubting. But then, I accidentally found out that I was adopted, a child they had taken in just as a tool for a beneficial marriage alliance. How much genuine love could you expect from someone who sees you as a tool? Once I figured that out, I started to help myself and got out of that mental trap. I returned the apartment and car back to them, as well as the 20 grand I saved from working part-time for the past 2 years since graduation. I gave it all to my parents. I want to repay them for taking care of me, but I want my marriage to be in my own hands. When I left, the faces of my family were not pleasant. The document severing ties, with all their signatures and fingerprints, wasn't handed to me. It was thrown in my face. I moved into a new rental, trying hard to pull myself together. During that time, Felix reached out to me several times. I kept my replies short, only telling him about my illness when he asked. He also wanted to meet up, but after thinking it over, I decided not to. I was scared that seeing him would make me lose control. I wanted to hug him, kiss him, take him for myself completely. But there's a part of me painfully aware that was afraid it was all just a dream. Felix didn't force or pester me. Sometimes I would check his Twitter. He rarely posted, but when he did, it was usually about his morning or night runs. I felt like a weirdo, blowing up his photos to greedily look at every part of him. Work was getting messy too. I had a hunch that Nolan might be pulling strings behind the scenes, but I couldn't quit. I had to hang in there, even with my pay cuts. When the pressure was about to break me, I came back late from working overtime and saw Felix downstairs. It was already fall in the city. He was standing in a dark gray trench coat, looking like a divine figure under my apartment. A cigarette dangled between his fingers. I think it was the first time I saw him smoke. The moment he saw me, he put out the cigarette right away. I was stunned standing there, and my sandwich fell out of my hand cold. Felix walked over. He didn't hesitate or give me a chance to say no and just kissed me. That kiss was deep and commanding, filled with a taste of nicotine that somehow enchanted me. Before I knew it, I was on my toes, pulling him down, kissing him back passionately. Oh, how I missed him. How I craved to kiss him, hug him, be entwined in him. We kissed all the way up the stairs. When I fumbled with the lock, he hugged me from behind, his lips finding my earlobe. That kiss made me melt, struggling to fit the key in the lock. Once the door opened, he pushed me inside and pinned me against the shoe cabinet. I started tugging at his coat, shirt, feeling the firm muscles around his waist. It was like electricity surging from my fingertips. I couldn't hold back a soft moan, but it got swallowed by his exploring tongue. Right at the point of no return, Felix's self-control amazed me as he broke the moment with, "I should shower first." He let go, eyes clouded with restraint. I loved that side of Felix, the kind brought down from his pedestal, lost in desire. When he turned, I clung to him, wrapping my arms around his waist. "I want to shower with you." My place was tiny, especially the bathroom. The shower was lukewarm, and I felt a bit chilly. Felix held me close, his body radiating warmth. His hands, hot, slipped through my soaked hair, massaging my scalp, sending shivers waves down my spine. His lips found mine, fingers brushing wet hair aside, caressing my frigid earlobe. I closed my eyes, letting go of any restraint. "Doctor, does my heart need a checkup?" I guided his hand to my chest. He was swept up in the moment, and we couldn't even make it back to the bedroom. Under the misty water and in the cramped space, we were tangled over and over until exhaustion claimed me, and I fell asleep, curled up against his arm. When I woke again, Felix was still in my apartment. I was genuinely surprised, rubbed my eyes to make sure. He had his sleeves rolled up, bringing out plates from the kitchen. "You're awake? Hungry? Why didn't you leave?" He set the plates down, stood by the table, looking at my sleepy face. "I was afraid if I left, you wouldn't talk to me for a long time again." He wore glasses, hair unkempt, falling gently, making him look like a piece of polished jade. I loved his look with glasses, but I loved removing them even more. "Felix," I stood before him, looking up into his eyes. "I have nothing right now. I might even lose my job. Plus, I'm not Lily from that family, just an adopted child. I'm selfish, and maybe a bit vain. I can't imagine how you could like someone like me." Felix must have sensed my vulnerability, insecurity, and confusion. He reached out, pulling me into a tight embrace. Lily, I've never cared about anything other than you. Why? I looked at him, whispering softly. Why me? Why do you like me? I'm so complicated, proud yet insecure. No reason. I just do. Felix gently lowered his head and kissed me softly. No reason, just because he liked me. Maybe it was way back when they were still in school. Maybe it was when she became Nolan's girlfriend, and they met again. Even Felix himself couldn't really say why. He just knew that after she and Nolan got together, he started forcing himself to go into a crowd he absolutely hated. He just wanted to catch another glimpse of her. So he'd swallow down jealousy and bitterness to stand near her and Nolan, time and again. Felix thought no one else in the world would ever know. That day in the car, when her knee touched his leg and she didn't move away, he felt disgusted with himself for his own slimy joy, but it was something he couldn't control. In the end, he became the kind of person he despised the most. But he didn't regret it. Not once did he regret his choice. He only regretted that he should have made the first move. He should have been bolder sooner, even if it meant being the slimy third wheel. Eventually, I lost my job. The day I left the company, I ran into Nolan downstairs. He saw me carrying a box out and jumped out of his car. For once, Carrie wasn't in the passenger seat. I kept walking, not looking at him. But Nolan blocked my way. Lily, stop fighting me. I've always said you're a pretty girl. Why stress yourself like this? Let's get back together. I promise I won't see Carrie anymore. I gave Nolan a smirk. People are always like this. They obsess over what they can't have. Now he's saying he won't see Carrie again. Probably just because they've crossed all lines. And now he's bored, lost interest. So he thought of me. What do you say? Nolan saw me smile and thought I was softening. He reached out to grab my hand. I stepped away. Nolan, but see, I already have a boyfriend. Nolan looked stunned. No way. Since when do you have a boyfriend? I smiled wider. Remember that time at the hot spring resort? I was wearing a men's shirt. Nolan's eyes narrowed, and his face turned dark. That shirt was his. We spent the whole night together, drank, talked, and yes, slept. Lily, come on, don't be mad. I tilted my head. Didn't you do the same with Carrie? And we hadn't even broken up. That's different. I was just fooling around. If I liked her, you'd be out of the picture. Nolan growled low, gritting his teeth. Yeah, it was different. Because I'm serious, I really like him. Who is he? Tell me. Nolan was about to lose it. No one's ever dared take someone from him. I'll skin him alive. Nolan was fuming, completely losing it. Who do you plan on skinning? Felix's voice was low and calm behind him. Nolan froze like a toy suddenly powered off. It took him a moment to turn around stiffly. When he realized it was indeed Felix behind him, it was like his spine was yanked right out. He stood there dumbfounded, unable to speak a word. Felix wore a black coat, his expression stern and distant. Well, Nolan? Hey, cousin. Felix passed by him and took my box. I'm going to say this once. Don't bother Lily again. Nolan was angry and upset, but didn't dare show it in front of Felix. Yet he couldn't hold it in. Cousin, you know Lily is my girlfriend. Not after you break up. I was just angry when I said I wanted to break up. Didn't mean it. I don't care. Felix freed one hand to wrap around me, glancing coldly at Nolan. Lily says it's over, then it's over. Cousin, if you're mad, you don't have to call me cousin anymore. Felix smirked. Anyway, our families aren't really related. Nolan clammed up instantly. Getting close to Felix had taken a lot of work. If it backfired on him, his dad would indeed skin him alive first. I got in the car with Felix. As we drove away, I looked back and saw Nolan standing there defeated. Then I turned my gaze to Felix. He looked so handsome, focused on driving. I couldn't help but snap a side profile pic of him. Felix, I want to post on Twitter. I really wanted to flaunt it. Tell the world Felix is my man. Alright. Then I'm posting it. I opened Twitter, selected the photo I just took. Typed a line. The most handsome man in the world is mine now. As soon as I posted, messages flooded in. Seeing the comment section explode with excitement had my heart brimming. At a red light, Felix held my hand. Happy now? Yeah, super happy. He turned his head and gently kissed my cheek. Lily, I'm really happy too. The The light turned green. The car moved on. Along the long road, the frost kissed the river. My happiness with Felix was just beginning. The end.